Hi there, friends. Ken here, your Thrifty Apprentice. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back. So, from the top of the video, I will remind you that this is a time lapse and you can control the video playback speed by utilizing the gear icon at either the top right or bottom right corner of your YouTube player, depending on how you are viewing YouTube. That will give you complete control of how the video plays if you want to slow it down or speed it up for whatever reason. I also wanted to mention that this is a demo of me doing a submission for the Camel website. Camel is the company that produces the Camel Artist line of products, and I am using 24 of their watercolors from their Camel Artist line in order to paint this composition from a reference photo that I found on Unsplash. Now, I am throwing that up on the screen, and you will be able to see that there are a few things about the reference photo that I did change, taking a little bit of artist liberty. I'm going to be using a variety of brushes from Golden Techlon to Synthetic Squirrel in order to paint this composition, and I have taped my paper off. This is also a test or a first test for a custom handmade sketchbook design that I am working on, and if it works out pretty well, it will go into mass production and be released to the public, just in case it's something you may want to get your hands on. But that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later on down the line. So I started this composition off by doing the background using several different colors, but trying to keep a limited palette. So I'm using a Scarlet Lake Red. I'm using what is known as a Camel Blue, which I think has PB 15 in it. So I think it's like a phthalo-based color. I'm using a yellow ochre. I'm using burnt sienna. I'm trying to think if I used any other colors in here. I think those were like the main colors I used. Oh, and I used an emerald green. Now, emerald green and the Camel Blue were mixed together to get this sort of light teal color that was used for the background or the table, so to speak, that the peaches kind of roll out on. And then all other colors were mixed into the background wash. That way I could make sure that I had a unifying base, for the underpainting. Now I'm going in with the second layer, and you are actually going to see me sort of what we call hem and ha a little bit with the peaches in order to get them to where I want them to be before I decide to move on. The thing is that with these particular paints, you do have to kind of use them in more of a mass tone to really get the saturation that you want. But once you get it built up, they're like super bright and saturated, even after they shift. So really decent quality artist grade paint. I kind of go back and forth between calling them like a high student grade paint and what I refer to as like a bridge paint. You guys may have heard me use that terminology before, but it's like a little bit better than a normal student grade paint, but hasn't quite got all the qualities of what you would expect from a traditional professional like legacy line of paint. But overall, especially when you consider the price of the Coquio Camel and watercolors, these are actually really good quality for the price that you pay. Now, the ones that I have are in a tube, and it just so happens that when you first open that tube, they do have a bit of a scent to it. So if you are scent sensitive, that is something that I want to throw out there. And you can find a review for these paints on the channel, by the way, in case you want a little bit more in-depth information about them. But once you sort of use the paints, that scent will dissipate and go away. And I haven't experienced it since like the very first time that I panned the paints up. And just kind of want to throw that out there, because I know that there are a lot of people who are sensitive to scents and things of that nature. At this point, I'm working on the second peach, and the peaches have yellow ochre, the Scarlet Lake Red, a little bit of gamboge. I forgot to mention gamboge. Gamboge is used in the composition as well. And I'm just kind of going back and forth between the yellow ochre, the gamboge, and the Scarlet Lake in order to get the peach somewhat similar to what is in the reference photo, but still sort of taking it in my own direction. And ultimately, they're going to come out okay, I believe. Now, this sketchbook I mentioned earlier is custom made, and it is 140-pound, 100% cotton paper. Sized on both sides, or sized all the way through the paper, but you are going to get a more toothier texture on the front side of the paper, whereas the back of the paper is a little smoother and sort of acts more like maybe a hot pressed paper. So the page I'm painting on is actually the first page in the book, but the back side of one of the sheets I used to make the signatures for this sketchbook. Therefore, I'm painting on the more hot press, so to speak, side of the paper. Now, the thing about it is hot press paper, or the back of cold press paper, you know how it is with hot press paper and water. You can use water on it, but you can't just get it super wet, because it may do things like cause harsh lines, and it could bloom, giving you more characteristics of cellulose versus 100% cotton, but still being more absorbent than cellulose and giving you a little bit more workability than a cellulose paper will. Overall, pretty decent. This sketchbook is bound with Artwell 100% cotton paper, just in case you were wondering. And you can look forward to a video coming up in the future where I do talk more about this sketchbook. Now, at this point, I'm moving on to tackling the basket. And, I should mention, I use the shadows that I put into the peach. I did that by mixing that Scarlet Lake color with a little of the Camel and blue, and so I got a decent color that was somewhere in between a maroon or like burgundy, dark red. I didn't want it to shift purple, just wanted the red to be deeper and cooler and more saturated. So that's why I mixed those two colors together. And overall, I think it worked out okay, especially after putting the highlight on the peach, which I did by using a paper towel to just lift some of the paint. And if you guys don't know, in most YouTube players, especially if you're using a iOS, iPad, or phone, or if you're using an Android phone or tablet, you can actually take your fingers and pinch the video and expand it in and out, zoom in on certain areas. So if you've never given that a try, I suggest that you do, because it's a great way to kind of zoom in on areas of a painting that you want to see a little bit more. And I will actually show you guys that in person in our next live, just so you will be able to see that. Now, at this point, I'm putting in the detail on my basket that the peaches are falling out of. And I initially started out putting those little texture dots in sort of symmetrically in a line. And then it hit me that they would probably look much better if I did it in a more random sense. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to alternate between the colors that I mixed out in order to do it. And I'm just randomly stippling that color in all along the top border, or that area that I want this in, until I was satisfied with the way that it looks. Now, those colors that I'm using in that would be burnt sienna, yellow ochre. I have a more neutral, gray, dark chocolate brown color, which is mixed from the burnt sienna and the camel and blue, which it surprised me. I didn't use ultramarine in this. I couldn't believe it. And then that fourth puddle that I'm using to do the stippling texture with is a mixture of burnt sienna and yellow ochre, just to lighten that browny red and give it more of a yellow undertone. Makes a really beautiful color. I'm also going to be using those same four colors in order to do the stripes that I'm going to put on the basket. Now, as you see in the reference photo, this is more of a weaved basket, and I really did want to just take it in a completely different direction. So I did some stippling around the top border, and then I'm going to actually put in stripes of color for the rest of the composition. Now, around the handle, I just took that darker kind of gray brown color that I mixed, and I used it to put a little detailing in, Not too much, not going to do too much to this area. Just want it to look like maybe wicker strips were twisted around each other. And ultimately, I think that effect came out okay. Friends, I'm not going to just continue to talk here because this is a pretty long time lapse, and you pretty much get the gist of everything as it goes along. I don't think anything is too hard to understand. I mean, even here at this point, you see me using a ruler in order to make sure that the stripes I put on my basket are going to be, excuse me, straight, and not wonky or wobbly or anything like that. So this was fun. This was a lot of fun. Again, you can slow it down if you want to give it a try. But ultimately, this was just me sharing a demo with you guys so that you could see the submission that I made for the Camel website. So sit back, enjoy the rest of this time lapse, listen to a little of the music that comes up. Maybe if you give it a try, don't forget to hit me up and let me know. Jump in the comments section and ask any questions that you may have about this particular video, about the paints, about the paper. I'll be happy to answer them as soon as I can. Now, if you're new or returning and you haven't subscribed, do consider hitting the subscription button and the notification bell so that you know when we upload and when we go live. There's a live every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time like clockwork, unless something comes up, and I try to notify you guys in enough time in advance. Let's see. Please, if you see anything, heard anything, pick up anything, or just like the video, do sprinkle a little love and give that video a thumbs up. You can share it because sharing is caring, and maybe someone else would love to see this painting done. And of course, the video description is going to contain all of the relevant links. Do check out the link for the Defiant Art website where you can get the information on this year's 2025 Thrifty Cheap Art Challenge Month, which is currently running right now in the month of September. We've been covering it a little bit on the channel, so I really encourage you guys to go check out the information on it. You can also find it here in the community post section on my YouTube channel, or you can find it on the Thrifty Apprentice Defiant Art Instagram page. But I do encourage you to check one of those places, check out the challenge, and please, please, please consider participating because it's actually a lot of fun, and it's a really good way to kind of break you out of maybe artist block, or just give you another way to practice and help build skill. Because the more you paint, the more you know, the better you get, the more you grow. I like that, I do. So enjoy the rest of your week, friends. I'll see you Monday for our live, and for those who participate in the Thrifty Apprentice Patreon community in the Creation Station, we will have a Watercolor Sunday Fun Day live coming out this Sunday. So I will see you all for that coming up soon. And remember, as I tell you always in every video, just keep creating.